The Vader 3 Pro from FlyDigi has long time been lauded or praised on this channel for being one of the best price to performance or bang for buck wireless controllers you can get. But with a higher number comes a newer version. The 4 says you can close the door on that old boar who acted like a whore for sure.
He was a hoe. For show.
But how many more clams are you gonna have to socket open to get this controller compared to the previous version, its predecessor? And what are the differences? Is it really a better controller? Without further ado, we are going to comprehensively do what we do and review the Vader 4 Pro from FlyDigi, China's #1 gamepad company. A little bit droid mode breaking you off there. Without further ado, let's get it. This disclaimer section is going to be very different than usual, where when a product is sent for review, I always give a disclaimer to my audience right after that catchy intro saying, hey, this product was sent for review, and these two pads were indeed sent for review by FlyDigi. However, I was contacted by 3 third-party distributors to get this controller in hand weeks ago. I refused all of them. One of them didn't even have a last name and seemed like an absolute scam. Another one had CC'd 15 other content creators, VCUDA included, so he can vouch for this bullschlaga. So now all of these YouTubers slash streamers that review controllers could see each other's emails. One of them, naive little content creator, I guess didn't see that everyone CC'd on this, actually responded saying, yeah, I'll review one of those pads, has his address and everything.
Oh, honey.
I know.
Bless your little heart. I think I was the only content creator to respond with a very professional yet stern, blunt email saying, do not take this approach ever again with content creators. If you were going to send a mass email, go ahead and BCC or blind CC everyone, but rather you should send individual personalized emails to each content creator to set up collaborations. Finally, FlyDigi actually did get in touch to send these 2 controllers out for review, considering the gamepad is available for public purchase and has been for over a month. And while that's not on Amazon, that launch is happening August 20th. You can spend your hard-earned money on this controller on Alibaba, AliExpress, vendors like that right now. And there's already reviews out there. One from this guy, one from this fella, one from this bro. And unfortunately, my relationship with FlyDigi started incredibly unsavory about 2.5 years ago, where I was told a controller would be sent for review and it never was. So that was an incredibly time-late review. That's actually happened 2 or 3 times to the point to where now I just don't trust receiving a controller from them. I'm just going to purchase one with my own hard-earned shekels or ducats, which I never mind doing. However, when a company says we're going to send one for review and then you account for that in your schedule and it never arrives. Furthermore, a little bit more unprofessionalism from 14 hours ago in the comment section of my Apex 4 review, as FlyDigi starts talking to Greg Riggito. If you haven't bought one, we could send you one for review. And I say, what the fuck is this? A dating app? A way for you to hook up with content creators? Take the shit somewhere else, like an email if you're interested in collaborating with this guy. As unprofessional as everything I've experienced from FlyDigi thus far. More details in my review tomorrow, which is this video right here. But my channel and no content creators comment section should be the forum or the platform for you to be recruiting any content creators to be reviewing your controllers. That should be handled in an email. I feel like that's absolute common sense, that's just fucking tacky to do. Also, to the guy that left the comment in the first place, drum up a little hype for your review. That's cool. Direct a little traffic over to your... Don't make me lock the sucker down. It's supposed to be for questions and comments and concerns and not FlyDigi doing shit like this. Not to be too stern or too blunt, but this is absolutely the channel that you want to get a controller in hand for a comprehensive review at launch or prior to public release. There's been a few controllers, 2 from Turtle Beach and 1 from another manufacturer that I'm drawing a blank on right now that I had the pleasure of testing out a couple months prior to public launch so I could give my feedback to the company. And then also they were cool enough, generous enough for me to get my thoughts out a little bit early to the public as to how their controller performed, because I guess they stood behind their product so much that they wanted in-depth information about it on YouTube. Quite simply, if there is a channel that specializes in one type of peripheral, keyboard, mice, headset, controller, for example, this channel that has put out not only the most quantity, but also the most in-depth comprehensive review of controllers for several years, to the point to where if you're not logged into a specialized account on YouTube, or you open an incognito tab and type in controller review, you're going to get a handful of GH reviews. And logically, all other controller manufacturers understand this, and watching my videos, just 5 minutes into them, they realize, okay, he's going to be bluntly honest honest. But he's going to very professionally point out the pros and cons of our product, which in a lot of cases is controllers, because that's what we're talking about here, for his audience, which happens to be the primary core demographic of their customers. When people go to YouTube to look for a controller review, it lands their happy ass right here. So to summarize all this, I'm not very fond of the professional relationship that I've had with FlyDigi because it has not been professional by any means. And even if they're not going to fall in line or hop on board the bandwagon that all the other controller manufacturers have of, hey, this seems like the channel that specializes in our product, maybe we should get the units in hand, prioritize that particular channel. If they're not going to do that, I recommend that they do get in line their third-party distributors that are running rampant, running scams on content creators, or just practicing bad business practices, like showing everyone's emails to each other, or in some cases, their home addresses to the guy that decided to share that with all of us. And why did I decide to share all of this with you? Quite simply because the jank that you're going to experience as a customer when trying to purchase a FlyDigi controller, whether you browse on their website and realize, oh, I can't actually purchase anything on this website, and a lot of these links take me to the wrong controller on Amazon. Luckily, that latter part has been fixed as of recent. But then you realize all those controllers that are sold on Amazon are also sold for about half the price if you're willing to wait about 3 to 5 weeks with no customer support by taking the AliExpress Alibaba route. Which, keep in mind, I did spend my hard-earned caps and buy my own Vader 4 Pro from Alibaba, which is due to arrive in about 5 days. And because I'm going to have an extra FlyDigi Vader 4 Pro, I'd like to do a giveaway at the end of the video. So why is my voice cracking? I'm shaky here. But I do want to give away the extra Vader 4 Pro controller that I'm going to have when it does arrive. So when I get that extra unit, I'll do a little video saying, hey, type this in the description and I'm going to give away this controller for you guys. I don't just collect, I actually do give away, and I'm going to start giving away way more controllers on this channel, excuse me. But a couple of notes from FlyDigi that I did want to pass on is that this controller, the Vader 4 Pro, is going to be available for purchase on Amazon starting August 20th. And the Black Flag limited edition is indeed a limited edition with only 1,000 of those units will ever be sold. So that's pretty cool, little limited run. This is a great game. One of my favorite Assassin's Creeds though. It's like a 13-year-old game from the Xbox 360 PS3 era. Maybe that's like the last Assassin's Creed game they could get the licensing for. And just to summarize or tie everything together, because I just listened back to the last 3 minutes of me rambling, and the point wasn't, I'm the best, this is the channel that reviews the controllers, you know, because it kind of sounded like I was sucking my own wiener, because it kind of sounded like I was gobbling my own giblets for a while, and it felt good while I was doing it the first take when I was saying all that stuff, but then watching it back in the editing software, I was thinking, ooh, you're coming off a little stinky right now. Third-party distributors, which I hope to God are not authorized from FlyDigi, because if they are, they're doing crazy stuff like I talked about earlier. We're gonna get through it, and FlyDigi makes amazing controllers, and I think that's what sucks the most. It'd be one thing if it was a controller company that their products were turds, because it would be a turd company making turd products. That's not the case though. So with all that negativity out of the way, because I think that was a really negative way to start a controller review, to be 100% honest, a lot of you might have just skipped over this whole section. You were like, Kevin's disclaimer is usually about 15 seconds. That one's like 4 minutes. Ain't got time for that. I want to hear about the actual controller. You just skipped to the good parts. But for all of you that stuck with me through this, thank you for letting me share my thoughts. And FlyDigi, hopefully we're on the gonna get on the same page in the near future. With a little summary of what this controller is, very suspicious. When you search for Vader 4 Pro, you're gonna get a bunch of websites, super safe for you to explore in their entirety. Don't do it, any of them. Scrolling down, we do recognize this sucker, Amazon. So their website, which is not only freakishly slow, missing several models, including the Vader 4 Pro, which even though it's not out yet, whenever there's a new product, it's never really touted or shown on the website like any other controller manufacturer or manufacturer of any product. You have to kind of find out about it through AliExpress and Wish, and well, in my case, my comment section. Hey, Kevin, did you know there's a Vader 4 Pro? I did not, but I'm here today reviewing it. But if you browse around, you're going to see they sell other things such as earbuds, including the wired ones you can use as nunchucks. The Shadow Stinger, I don't know what that is, but it'll have its own video another day because it looks crazy. But what you're not going to see on here is the Vader 4 Pro, which absolutely should be here. But where we do have a little landing page where we can learn about some of the key features right here, here where it's being shown as a $39 controller. That's probably not the right model. Nope, that's the Vader 3 standard. Confusing a little bit. There's the Vader 3 Pro, 4 Pro with the box. If you want it thrown into some packing peanuts, loosey-goosey with the thumbsticks crisscrossed and broken sideways, it's a little cheaper. If you want the box, when they say box, I'm assuming they actually are talking about this cloth accessory bag, which is kind of nice to hold all of your loose accessories. So not that I trust the recommended price or MSRP on any of these websites because they're all going to fluctuate, vary, but $80, that sounds pretty reasonable considering that's what the Vader 3 Pro has been going for quite some time. It was 90 the longest time, slashed down to 80 for the last 8 months or so. But what you're going to notice is a huge difference is these rings, which aren't just some anti-friction glide rings or anything. Nope, that is a new method of adjustable tension, which I just complained about how on the Apex 4, you actually need to cut and drill into the front faceplate to get access to the adjustment knob if you don't want to have to go through extra steps to adjust them every time. The Vader 4 Pro completely eliminates that problem, which is pretty sweet. And the thumbsticks, in essence, they should be a little bit better. Things like the resolution, response, inner and outer dead zone. But I would like to take a look at the Vader 3 Pro and 4 Pro modules side by side and see if they're any different, see if we can note any visual differences. As for the packaging, included accessories on the FlyDigi Vader 4 Pro gaming controller, which has the Chinese characters up top, the English ones down here, more Chinese characters here, more English ones there, a couple of symbols here. That's the brand logo right there. Flip it around backside, some of the key features if you wanted to read them. We also have a Black Flag limited edition, slightly damaged, that's okay. I also mentioned during the summary, I thought it was a little bit interesting that they chose a 13-year-old game, a good game, in fact one of my favorite Assassin's Creeds, but maybe that was the last one that they could get the licensing for. You do have the identical included accessories on the special edition. I didn't really expect there to be like a special colored cable or anything. This is still a budget or entry-level controller. Removing this plastic sneeze guard, you will notice that the packaging is almost identical to previous FlyDigi controllers. You have a little cutout for your dongle, which is called the Fly Speed. No, it's not. I had their marketing gimmick name wrong. It's Fly Sync. All these companies have them. Razer mice have Hyper Speed. They've all got something cool. Tomahawk, Knuckle Duster 3000. Gaming terms, baby. Now for me personally, since I have so many FlyDigi controllers, I think this is my 10th or 11th, and most of them use the same looking dongle. I use my label maker to label what controller they're for so I don't get them mix matched, because they are paired to a specific controller. They feel like you're just holding air. And then you have this little gloss section in the middle, collects fingerprints, micro scratches like nobody's business, but it does wonders for input lag or delay, and I guess that's what counts more. You thought I was blowing smoke up your patooties? No. BF, not for best friend, but for Black Frag. Frag out. Black Flag. Little ASMR you didn't sign up for? A little note to save your bacon when unboxing is FlyDigi decided to cut these little glory holes around the thumbstick caps. Now you can just pop these suckers off, which I recommend doing, or just be careful to not rip the bag and damage the thumbstick modules. Oh damn, those modules look sick. Way different than the Vader 3. Same included 6-inch rubber USB-C cable, no dust covers on the A or C end. This is just going to be used for charging as this is a wireless controller, unless you want to go wired, but in that case you're probably going to want to bring your own cable to the party, something a little bit longer and flexible and lightweight and all that other good shit. I just reviewed the Apex 4 and I think I said the exact same thing. You got, you know, Chinese characters on this side and Egyptian hieroglyphics on this one. Definitely not English for your North American audience. But what happens if you scan the QR code and takes you to a digital instruction manual that is also not English? And of course, this second placard is going to be a plug for some of their other products, mostly controllers, but they also make earbuds and some other shiz. And every current FlyDigi controller does have removable thumbstick caps, even if they don't have a swappable option that you can switch to. So you can get a pack on Amazon or directly from Psych. You can't buy shit directly from FlyDigi. That website doesn't do anything. But you can find these caps online and get different heights and replacements. Plus, we'll go over the KontrolFreeks compatibility in the thumbstick section. As for the cosmetics or appearance, which I generally do over there with the wall as a blurred out backdrop, but we've got these puppies laid out really nicely, and they've all got their noses pressed against the glass saying, "Pick me, pick me." They're all absolutely adorable in my book. We'll focus on this one first, as it is a limited edition with only 1,000 units produced. I personally think it looks phenomenal because instead of just going the lazy customization route like Sony does with a lot of their first party limiteds, FlyDigi went more the Microsoft route where they actually changed things like the face buttons and a bunch of the trim pieces. And even though this is an older game, it is one of my favorite Assassin's. There's more than one. It's plural, my boy. Just like there's more than one controller on the table right now, but this one right here is gorgeous. I love this thing. Now this is the Vader 3 Pro. This one looks a little different because it's got some stick-on rubber grips, which I made a short form video about. These not only feel great, but also do change up the looks of the controller. But stock to stock, it is not even close in my book. I do think the new Vader 4 looks so much better, as they have ditched a lot of what I would consider the cheap looking trim pieces, like this light silver and the light silver D-pad. Everything looks more menacing, mean, clean, and ready to get down on the machine, I guess. I don't know. Everything looks better on the Vader 4 Pro, especially because you've got that little style pop of having those thumbstick bases peeking through, showing you that this is something a little bit different than a normal controller. This is looking so good. As for the ergonomics or comfort, the Vaders have always been very comfortable controllers because they do share the ergonomic shape and shell design of an Xbox controller, which I do believe are virtually perfect. Luckily, this does have some pretty aggressive stippling with these little dots that do provide a good amount of grip, but you can always get some stick-ons in the aftermarket for the Vaders, the 3 and the 4, especially because they're the same exact shape and shell design. So this kit for the Vader 3 will work on the 4 as well. But ergonomically, this is a freakishly comfortable controller. You got your rear buttons here, your inners just a slight travel over, or you could hold it like that with a modified grip. Very comfortable controller. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9.5 out of 10. I don't know what that extra half point would be. I guess replacing my hands with more comfortable units. We're going to handle the build quality section substantially different in this video. Usually I'm talking over there with the Stormtrooper helmets as a backdrop. That's cool and all, but we've already reviewed the Vader 3, the Vader 3 Pro, which is, you know, I pointed twice. This is the Pro version. The non-Pro variant has also been reviewed, as well as a bunch of other FlyDigi models. And I would like to cover the build quality more in depth later during the teardown or disassembly, where I take a look at the guts of the Vader 4 versus the 3. But to spoil a little bit of the juice right now and get it on your tongue so you want a bigger swig of it later, it's a good story that's getting better, and they're doing something good. I didn't note anything on the manufacturer's website or landing page about the tech spec difference on the D-pad, which makes sense because that doesn't exist as of current. This catches your eye in the background. I got a new piece of decor, which I got from a Etsy seller. They handcrafted this bad boy. Their deets will be linked in the description below, because I think this is pretty sick looking. It's a replica of the Fallout TV show bottle that guy tongues the shit out of when Lucy offers him a sip and he takes much, much more than a sip. Yeah, that's his thing.
Would you like a sip? Actually, I might.
Thank you.
Thank you for making that for me. I also got that Jet over there, or is that Psycho? One of the Kims over there, which may or may not also be a one-hitter device for intake of your medicinal herbs. It's unused, just on display, obviously. Cool looking. The D-pad is noticeably quieter, and it takes a little bit more strength or resistance to actuate, which I personally like, because I always thought the Vader 3 D-pad was a little bit too light, to where you could just put your finger in the middle and do that, and that's crazy. Which you can still do over here. Is a little bit more difficult, and it does take more resistance to do things like roll-offs and direction changes. I personally do think the D-pad is an improvement, not only being quieter, but also the plastics used. Keep in mind this one has a little rubber stick on, but the stock plastics do feel nicer on the Vader 4. It does still stick a little bit farther from the front faceplate than I'd like. Just a little fitment note. Is this removable? Fuck no, it's not. You're gonna break it. Stop doing that immediately. As for the face or action buttons, they are completely unchanged from the previous Vader 3 Pro, which isn't a bad thing by any means. Mechanical. I'm curious what Kevin had to say back in the day about the Vader 3 Pro, because I feel like these are the same buttons. And they're also mechanical switches, which feel very nice.
Nice.
And one additional feature I like is the C and Z buttons, which are addressable in PC programs like Rewaaz, so you can set up Windows-specific functions like switching between scenes in OBS if you're a streamer, or if not, just switching between songs and Spotify, or turning on your room lights. Face or action buttons, 9 out of 10. They're hella good. As for the accessory buttons suite, so that's going to be start and select, which are cocked at a weird angle. Also, the left one's kind of hard to access if you do have a heightened stick thumbstick cap, like a KontrolFreek add-on, but luckily this isn't a button that you're going to hit very frequently in gameplay. It would still be nice if this was located maybe in the center, somewhere that's a little bit easier to hit. Also, you might be confused and think this is a home button, but the FlyDigi logo is just there for design with that cheap looking RGB strip right underneath it. The actual home button is this tiny little guy down here.
Come here, little guy. Come here, little earthworm, you.
Come here, you.
And one huge missed opportunity, actually two, actually three, would be the addition of a share button for use on the Xbox. I know this is not an Xbox controller, but FlyDigi's gotta know a lot of their customers are using these on consoles with converters or adapters. Entire section about that later. But they could have added a share button or some kind of additional third button that could be bound. And then also a 3.5mm headphone jack that's becoming kind of a relic in 2024. And you might be wondering what those metal pads are for. Those make contact with the pogo pins of the additional optional charger cradle, which is my third point, I do believe should be included because it can't cost them very much to manufacture that sucker, and it would just make the unboxing presentation a little bit nicer if this had the cradle with it. And I don't know, maybe I'm asking for too much.
Now as for the thumbsticks, analog sticks, or joysticks,
because this is it. This is the main feature, the main difference between the Vader 3 Pro and the Vader 4 Pro is you now have these adjustable tension rings, which are, wait for it, freaking amazing. They are clearly labeled. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in post-editing so you can actually read that text. Minimum, and then if you rotate clockwise, you will get to maximum tension, which me personally, I have it on its loosest setting on the left and its tautest setting on the right, just for demonstration purposes. I do actually taper this down quite a bit, as at its tightest or most jacked down, it is incredibly taut and requires a ton of thumb strength if you are going to have stocked height caps. I do think this is indeed for if you are going to pop on KontrolFreeks, because with that additional height, you do now have additional leverage and it becomes much easier to move those thumbsticks. Cosmetically, I think these also look so cool. I did point that out during the cosmetics section. And we are going to test them at the PC side of the house because I have heard some claims about resolution and them being tauter and more responsive and snappy and just better performing than the Vader 3 Pro, and I'd like to see that with my own corneas. This is the best method or implementation of increased and decreased thumbstick tension I have ever seen, considering you usually have to choose that option in the builder. It's pretty expensive and it's going to be constantly installed. Then you've got the Elite Series 2 from Microsoft, that first party offering, which has a little tool which does allow you to adjust from 3 modes of tension. This has several, the entire rotating, all that is modes of adjustment. And it's also very easy to do this on the fly, unlike the Apex 4 where you have to take off the front faceplate or modify it with a Dremel and drill. Showed you how to do it in the video from a couple days ago. We are wired to the PC via USB-C cable, not the included shorty. I brought my own to the party. We got the Vader 4 Pro in hand, clicking a button, nothing's gonna happen. It is plug and play, but you do need to hit this home button to wake her up. Hit the button, boom. It's gonna be recognized as an Xbox controller, as this is going to default to X input on PC, which is what you want. Now you will notice on axis 0, 1, 2, and 3, which is the vertical and horizontal movement of both of the sticks, they do not snap back to a perfect resting value of 0.00002 or 0.00392.
keep in mind within the FlyDigi Space application, which I'm going to walk you through later,
You can adjust it to where you will tauten your dead zones. Now if these are radial or circular thumbstick modules, then lower number better here. However, some modules are actually registered as squares, but if they are even, it's no cause for concern. Are you reaching the outside of your thumbstick gates, which is visually very easy to see with the circularity test, as it does give you these color diagrams, or yeah, colors.
I'm going to go ahead and full screen this.
Can't do that with FlyDigi Space. They're not there yet. Pinch zoom, not this one, but it does give you a lot of customization. What I was talking about over here is compensation versus dead zone. Now, one unique feature to the Vader 4 that is going to be unlocked in FlyDigi Space, you're not going to have this with any of the other models, this joystick center, joystick edge, and then circularity algorithm, which do have a little help icon in the form of a question mark, because you're going to have a question. Hey, back of the class here, what the hell are you talking about, FlyDigi? And they're going to break it down for you in simple or layman's terms, if you will. Ideally, when the joystick is pushed to the bottom to complete a full circle, the track should be a perfect circle. However, under a circular track algorithm, if players want to make the character run in some games, when the joystick is pushed to the edge in a diagonal direction, the character's acceleration will be obviously or notably lower than when pushing the joystick to up, down, left, or right direction. Therefore, rectangular track algorithm can ensure consistent data output in all directions for the joystick. The default joystick circularity of all FlyDigi controllers are set to rectangular track, which provides higher precision and speed for most games. Circular track offers better directional accuracy and is more suitable for sports games and FPS games. You can choose the appropriate setting based on your own game needs within the FlyDigi Space station over here. But I would like a visual representation of what this change is doing, and the best way to get that is going to be in GBT or Gamepad Tester. So I'm going to drag you to the side, and then I'm going to bring you... Damn, that app really does suck. FlyDigi Space, it doesn't even snap it over here. Good Lord. Optimize it for Windows or something. So we got the controller in hand. Nothing's happening. Fantastic. There we go. I'm with it. So right now we're in the rectangular pattern, which as you see, no drift or anything like that, but not snapping back to a perfect resting value. Test the circularity. It'll be between 12 and 16 percentile. Called it. Nice and even though. Love to see that. Let's go ahead and change her over to circular. See what that be looking like. Whoa, brother. So not too much of a difference, notably, right? Immediately. Oh, but there you can see it clear as day. And it is interesting that you can control these individually separated from the left and right joystick. So right now we're on circular for the left and rectangular for the right, which as you're going to see is going to give you higher average error rate. That by no means means that these are bad thumbstick modules. Generally with most thumbstick modules, almost all potentiometers like Alps and whatnot, higher average error is generally not a good thing. But when we're talking rectangular or square, those are two things that I've heard used interchangeably. Those type of thumbstick modules versus circular or radial, I've heard them called that as well interchangeably. The average error is higher, numerically a higher number, but as long as everything looks even, it's really no cause for concern. So no matter whether you're in rectangular or circular, you are getting good thumbstick module performance. And they do mention it can base on game, what type of game you're playing. Who the fuck wants to do that? Switch between, well, hold on, let me open my controller software and switch from a radial to circular. I'm sorry, that's the same thing. Circular to rectangular because I'm going from a fighting game to a racing game. The more in-depth these Pro controllers get with features, the more redundant and just simply silly some of them get when you really sit down and think about.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
They make enough silly decisions for a second site B, if you will. Engine tech. I've seen all that I need to see here. I think that you've also seen. No, you want to see a little bit more, don't you? And I would as well. Let's go ahead and make this a little bigger for us. We can't. This app, you can do a lot in the FlyDigi apps. That's why I give them praise and I've ranked them, you know, hey, they're pretty good, but not for Windows because you can't really full screen them. They don't work with you very well. I've got a little bit more reading to do, so gather around the campfire. Let me swig some water and we'll get down to... Let me read this for you. The sensitivity curve is the function relationship between physical input of the joystick and the signal output by the computer. The sensitivity curve can be used to adjust the feel of the joystick to suit different games or personal preference. Absolutely. What the hell is joystick center and joystick edge? I'm going to read it to you. Worry not. The center dead zone refers to the area where there is no signal output at the center of the joystick. When the joystick is moved in this area, there is no operational feedback in game. For example, setting the center dead zone to A meaning 0 or less, at this time there is no output value before pushing the joystick to a distance of A%, which I give 0. After exceeding the distance of A%, the joystick this science is hurting my noggin. Anybody else? The joystick center starts outputting data. Once the center compensation is set, the initial value of the joystick is the set value. The center compensation is used to offset the built-in center dead zones in some games. For example, after setting the center compensation to B also 0-ish, when the joystick is in the center position, there will be a B% offset. After setting the joystick center compensation, since the joystick center cannot return to center, the joystick's automatic calibration function will automatically fail, as I did a couple times trying to read this, what is not a super confusing jumble of words. What about the joystick edge? As in, it'd be so much simpler just to get yourself a PlayStation Edge and not have to fuck around with these crazy Chinese controllers with so many tweaks. The edge dead zone of the joystick is the area where there is no signal output at the edge of the joystick. When the joystick is moved in this area, there's no operational feedback in game. Hold on, is this the same thing I just read? No, it's different. It just sounds so similar to what I just read. In contrast to the effective range of the center dead zone, when setting the edge dead zone to C meaning also 0, all of these numbers are going to be 0, pushing 100% to C% of the distance will output 100% value. After setting the edge dead zone, joystick sensitivity will be increased in game. After setting the edge compensation, even if the joystick is pushed to the edge, the actual output value of the joystick cannot reach 100%. In contrast to the effective range of the center compensation, when setting the edge compensation to D also 0. Pushing the joystick to the edge will result in the actual value of the joystick being 100% to that big fat D. After setting edge compensation, joystick sensitivity will be decreased in the game, which is suitable for precise aiming in FPS games. Wow, that last sentence is kind of all we needed there.
shots, hermano. No sign of us, son.
Here at Gamer Heaven, we read the controller words so you don't have to.
But I do think a proper time and place to revisit what just happened there is going to be in the upcoming potentiometer versus Hall Effect thumbstick module technology, in which we're also going to touch on a third and actually better than Hall Effect technology with the TMR sticks from Ghoulie Kit, which are also magnetic but not Hall. Very, very similar with a couple of niceties that we like to see. But in that video, I'm going to go freakishly in depth, as in taking apart potentiometer and Hall Effect thumbstick modules with a macro lens so we can inspect the guts. I'm going to talk about the science of how do they work. We're going to debunk so much controller misinformation, and then we're going to get down to brass tacks. What's good for gaming, what's not. Make it simple for us.
But to make everything super simple now, what I recommend you do is leave both of the thumbsticks in circle, as by the manufacturer's claim that does give you better directional accuracy and is more suitable for sports and FPS games. Just leave it in that. It'll be fine. And then this is the most confusing dead zone adjustment slider that I've ever seen, because it's not really just doing dead zone, it's also cutting into your thumbstick sensitivity curve, as opposed to just focusing on your very, very dead zone over here, which other FlyDigi controllers do have a separate slider that just says dead zone, and you can taper it down. It's at 5 by default. I always say make it 0 and then hit apply. Also, a nice change though is that the changes happen in real time. As you see, I just did that. It'll say save successfully over here, and that is mapping to the controller's memory. So if I were to take this over to one of the consoles over there, it'll remember everything I did over here. And there are 4 profiles that you can swap. And if you screwed anything up, just hit restore to current page, and yes. And I don't ever recommend trying to get fancy with the sensitivity curves. I've seen some crazy ramps where it looks like a zigzag pattern, or like that, or like that, or like that. That is going to be more detrimental than beneficial. I always recommend going for default, or linear as it's sometimes called. Just a line. You're going to be linearly kicking their ass back to the lobby. Plastics and actuation force is identical on the bumpers, but they are notably quieter and a little bit better sounding, more secure on the Apex 4. Cut that background music. The bumpers do sound a bit better on the Vader 4. I will say the triggers feel identical with the trigger lock or stop system engaged and disengaged, which I really liked on the Vader 3 Pro. They feel like they have much more resistance than a standard controller. Good range of motion or travel, and then you turn these puppies on and you get a digital mouse click. Very quick to actuate, not very loud. Liked them on the Vader 3, like them on the Vader 4 Pro. Bumpers and triggers, 8 out of 10. I'm not going to say I'm on strike from reviewing FlyDigi rear buttons, but they haven't changed since the good old days. I've reviewed 6 or 7, no, that's way too little, 8 or 9 models that all shared the exact same 4 rear button suite. So for lack of sounding like a Winchester repeater, just repeating myself, I'm going to find the most articulate description from my previous reviews about the FlyDigi rear buttons, as they are great, remappable in the software, but not on the fly. But they're ergonomically great, and if you already own a FlyDigi controller, you've felt these rear buttons, or if you've already sat through any of my reviews, then you've heard the rear button section, as they are identical. As for gyro or motion control, because that is a feature that all current FlyDigi, well, actually a lot of the older FlyDigi models had as well, but these controllers have them, and it is much more accurate and responsive and customizable on the PC side of the house. Just playing a normal Switch game, it does seem a little bit more sporadic and sputtery, not as consistent or non-janky as just using a first-party Switch Pro controller. Getting our first stock input lag or delay test going wired, we are starting with Gamepad LA. We are recognized as an Xbox 360 controller. Let's get down to business. No surprise here, as we are seeing a 1000 hertz polling rate right out of the box, which is going to get you around that 1 millisecond of input lag or delay mark. Very consistent as well, as jitter is extremely low, and the minimum and maximum quite close to each other. They hang out. Now, taking a look at X input tests, because you're going to get a little bit more data that you can visually scroll through. It's already walking on me. We'll stop. Can you stop that for a second, please? Let me tighten down. Let me jack down the tension on the left stick. That might be part of it. Oh boy, golly. Oh boy, howdy. So ignoring the 2 outliers, it is definitely 1000 hertz polling rate. And luckily you're going to see that with the FlySync adapter wirelessly as well. Let's do that now. That was nice. As I clunked that dongle into its open waiting USB port, it immediately vibrated the controller. So it was plug and play to the maximum, ready to go. Oh, that's cool. It's not, okay, oh, damn. Spoke too soon. I was about to say it's not walking on me anymore. It still is. And the polling rate is still going to be 1000 hertz, even when you're wired. What the fuck? There we go.
Oh, yes, 1000 hertz.
Kevin, you didn't test the speeds of the Bluetooth, but I did, and it's the same exact Bluetooth as the Vader 3 Pro, which is kind of disappointing. And I was expecting maybe a little bit more consistency, but it's the Bluetooth results were the same. Now, we're already at a very fast polling rate of 1000, but let's go ahead and shove it to the 8000 mark and see if that does anything. Can we overclock it is what I'm asking you. In this drop down, go ahead and select all. We've got our HID compliant controller. Let's give the juice the squeeze, so to speak. Now, unfortunately, both wired and attempting to overclock the dongle, I was not seeing any benefit to overclocking, not making it more consistent, definitely not increasing the peak speeds, which are already very fast, under 1 millisecond of input lag or delay. I do have one of those Arduino devices to be able to connect to the PCB and test directly at the board, and I'm going to get that all set up and squared away, and that's going to be implemented in my future controller reviews starting in the very near future. Having said that, though, using 3 separate pieces of software and then also having a limited amount of time with one of those physical devices, I can confirm right here, right now, and it'll be better down the road because I can consistently show this over time by owning my own device, that the results you get just using the software program Gamepad LA and X Input Test is usually identical or so similar to the results you're going to get with one of those Arduino devices. As for converter or adapter support, I am proud to report that with the use of the Brook Accessories XB2, you can wirelessly use the Vader 4 Pro just like the 3. It's the same Bluetooth card whether you have it in the Bluetooth toggle or in S for Nintendo Switch. The only difference is you will have the use of the share button and not have to press home and then the concurrent X to save a clip. One note is in NS mode that will cut out the analog triggers, so if you're playing racing games, use the regular Bluetooth mode, not NS. And you can also go wired to that dongle or plug the dongle into the back of the converter, which I don't recommend even though the results, the input lag or delay was very low on PC. It feels pretty sporadic and less consistent than going the Bluetooth route on the consoles. That applies to the PS5 as well, where you are unfortunately limited to playing PS4 games and navigating the console, although I am going to do a big upcoming comparison video of all the popular converters / adapters, as some of them do allow you to play PS5 games with Xbox and Switch controllers, which is pretty cool. I also saw a lot of questions on my recent review of the Apex 4 about how do you actually get them to pair up. It's actually very simple. With your Brook Accessories adapter, pinch the 2 blue lights on the side, which happen to be buttons. It'll start flashing. Put the toggle in the back of the controller to either Bluetooth or NS, and then hold down the home button until that white LED light starts flashing rapidly, showing you that it's in pairing mode. A couple of seconds later, you'll get a vibration in the controller, and all the lights on the adapter and the controller will go solid, letting you know you're ready for business. I don't advise anyone takes apart their controller because it voids your warranty. However, it wasn't super complicated, but there is a point of no return when you get down to the thumbstick modules. I am going to advise everyone watching does not proceed past this point because it does greatly increase the difficulty of reassembling your controller. Now, I do always recommend having a couple of cups or dishes to put all of your screws. An interesting note, the FlyDigi controllers only have 4 cross-tip or Phillips head screws holding everything in place, which is substantially less than any other controller I've taken apart. However, the clips are so aggressively holding everything in place, you can't use a guitar pick or your fingernail, you gotta get a little pry tool. Nice little note on the inside, both controllers do have plugs attached to the PCB for removing the thumbstick modules, which on most controllers, if you wanted to remove the rumbles to save weight and battery life, you would just rip it directly from the board out of the soldering. As we're here, it feels nicer to just unplug them, and then if you want to return them later, you can plug them back in. Here's a demo of the trigger lock or stop system. Identical on the Vader 3 and 4. I was really surprised that there's only one size of screw and it's these pointy tips, so not a flat edge, which I thought was kind of interesting, but pointy or sharp tipped Phillips head screws. I didn't measure them, but they're all the same size, which makes reassembly really easy. Pay attention to these rings because during reassembly, you need to make sure that the cogs line up with the actual adjustable tension modules or you're going to have a problem. Now, this doesn't exist on the Vader 3 Pro, as that is the main new feature, is those adjustable tension modules. Flipping the PCBs over, you are going to see the modules, and unlike every other controller I've disassembled, you can't just grab and pull up the thumbstick modules like you can on the Vader 3, which are revealing these K-Silver thumbstick modules. They can get stick drift for you because they still have a typical recentering spring. These new modules do not, but for the love of God, do not grab them and pull them up. They do have 2 extremely tiny Phillips head screws that will need to be removed, and then you're able to get that blue plastic shroud or cover off, which reveals to you these in-house FlyDigi thumbstick modules, which do have a pretty hefty coating of factory grease
grease or lubricant, which came off on my hand, and I didn't know what weight they were using or what particular lubricant, so I didn't re-grease it. Also, I was very careful to not have dog hair flying into the modules and whatnot, but one thing you're going to notice as I get deeper in the modules is that they do not have a typical recentering spring at all. So the one point of failure that could get stick drift for you on thumbstick modules is completely non-existent with this design. Now, this is absolutely the point of no return where you can take apart your controller to this point, but just go ahead and stop. Do not continue to take apart the thumbstick module because there's 2 or 3 issues that make it real finicky to put back together. I just thank the controller gods I was able to do so. You can see slots in there for 2 magnets and then a long plastic prong and a smaller plastic arm, which should make reassembly super easy, except they don't really fall into place. Kind of just have to float them in there and then take the cover and put it over that. But if you do it the other way, which I thought would make more sense, by putting it all upside down and then just dropping it into place, it doesn't really snap into place and it will fall on the table, which actually separates the inner thumbstick module lever to 2 separate parts. Furthermore, everything has to be lined up just right, and you have to just kind of float the 2 magnets in there with friction and then tighten everything together and hope to God it works well. The next issue is I had my set screw completely back out for the tension, which made my right thumbstick module tensionless to where it was loosey-goosey, 0 resistance or tension whatsoever, meaning it would be useless. Now, luckily, you can just use your finger and push down that threaded set screw and then screw it in to where you start feeling resistance on the thumbstick module. The next thing you need to be cognizant of is these rings or dishes around the thumbstick gates, as those do need to line up with the gears or cogs in order to properly tighten up your thumbstick modules. Check everything before you fully reassemble your controller.
As for the verdict, is the juice worth the squeeze, or is the crab worth the cracking of the shell to get to the meat? It's a lot of work. Is it actually worth the tastiness that you're going to get at the end? Not if you're allergic to shellfish, and not if you don't like FlyDigi controllers, which I can totally understand if you don't. Just from watching this video, there were a couple of key points. If I was a customer watching it, I'd be thinking, wow, that's crazy. That software program that can't be full screened and isn't the cleanest to navigate. And they've been using the same subpar 4-rear button suite for ages, since the dark ages. Show that little Doom fucking trailer. At the end of the day, this is a better version of the Vader 3 Pro, which has been my long-time budget recommendation. Now, if you're looking for a more budget controller, about half the price, $45 versus $90, you could get the GameSir G7 SE, which is a phenomenal wired 2-rear button Pro controller that allows you to overclock to 1000 Hz within the GameSir Nexus software. Or if you wanted rubber grips, mechanical buttons, and had a really good run of luck with not getting stick drift, you could get the G7 Standard. I'd still love that controller. But there is no denying it. The Vader 4 Pro is better than the Vader 3 Pro because you have the slickest adjustable tension modules. Awesome, to put it quite simply. Having said that, if you do find Vader 3 Pros on a substantial sale, 45, 50 bucks online, jump at that. But having played with the Vader 4 and the Vader 3 on PC and all 3 of the consoles, they don't really feel any different in gameplay, at least to my thumbs and my fingers. My fingers hurt. But maybe you've got a different set of paws than I do. But no matter what you're working with, it is going to be a very comfortable controller. Things like the D-pad have been improved. Things like the face buttons, triggers, and bumpers have remained the same. But overall, this is a better version of the Vader 3 Pro, a controller that I've long time loved, and I like this newer version of it quite a darn bit. The Amazon link is going to be down there in the description below, which currently says it's unavailable. It will become available August 20th. In the meantime, if you do want to pick up this controller, wait a few weeks, don't really care much about customer support. They have been sold for a few weeks now on AliExpress, Alibaba. It'd be so cool if you could just buy them directly from the FlyDigi website, from the manufacturer direct. Drop in the comments section below your opinion of this controller, and I will see you Stallions and Stallionettes tomorrow. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers, so this information will reach and assist them as well. Much like the back of the TV, I've got plugs for all of my socials down there in the description below. And your wallet will greatly thank you if you check the description, because there are exclusive discounts on a ton of products, including controllers, KontrolFreeks, keyboards, mouse pads, clothes, and energy drinks. And keep in mind that you, the viewer, keep this channel running. The more Stallions and Stallionettes trotting around the stable, the better, so mollywop that subscribe button like it owes you money, and we'll have the same amount of fun tomorrow.